So I took all of 5 minutes really, no more than 5 minutes, to take you through a series of mental events where you put your attention and had a certain intention. How many people could feel that they could hear their heartbeat? How many people could transfer it to their hands? You know, when you did that, you altered blood flow and circulation, and you actually lowered your blood pressure by 10 to 15 points. 80% of drugs are given for that range of hypertension. How many people could move the blood into their cheeks against gravity through intention? Okay, so all I'm saying is within 5 minutes, you can use your conscious mind to override your midbrain, which means this part, which is the fight-flight response, totally. You can activate the limbic brain just by thinking of love, compassion, kindness, joy, or people in your life. And you can literally rewire your whole brain through practice. And this is just 5 minutes of instruction. This is a new field in science. It's called neuroplasticity. And the operating phrase is, neurons that fire together, wire together. So, you know, great yogis in India have been doing this for thousands of years, where they can change their body temperature just with the flicker of an intention, lower their heart rate, change body circulation, lower blood pressure, change autonomic responses. And today we are finding out so much about this part of our brain. This is cortical brain, which is something called the, there's this little island there called the insula, which is like a hub, you know, where like, say, a hub, an airport terminal like Chicago, where all the flights come and go. So the insula is like a hub, and it sends messages to all the different parts of the brain and the body and receives messages, okay? And everything functions as an integrated whole, and you can learn to actually influence that, to self-regulate that. So you're no longer victimized by the midbrain into reactive responses. You just stop, you watch the impulse, and you let it go. You activate limbic brain, you activate intuition by asking questions, you activate creativity by incubating and gathering information. So for the first time, we have a deep understanding. We can watch what's happening in the brain through PET scans and CAT scans. And with the newer technologies, like this, for example, which I have in my pocket, which tells me how many calories I'm expending, how much energy I'm using, how long I sleep at night. You can wear headbands to monitor your brainwaves from a distance. And this morning I was at Cisco, and I spoke to 100 countries, 100 leaders, over 150 leaders in over 100 countries, and through bioregulation and biofeedback, training them to rewire their brain for higher consciousness. It's no longer mystical. It's science. The two operating new discoveries in science, one is neuroplasticity, that just by changing your patterns of inner experience, you can rewire your brain. And the other is what is called gene regulation. After I finished at Cisco this morning, I went to meet Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, who got the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2009, to talk about the fact that our so-called genes are not fixed entities. You know, the human genome has you have about 23,000 genes. There are some worms that have more genes, and 65% of your genes are the same as a banana. So, you know, it's not our genes that make us who we are. It's how we think, how we behave, how we consciously learn to live our lives. You can change or upregulate 500 genes that code for diseases like heart disease, certain types of cancer, autoimmune illnesses. Gene regulation and neuroplasticity are giving us a new idea of the human body. It's not a structure, it's a process. There are no structures in the universe. Everything is a process, and every process occurs in the field of consciousness. So based on that, I created this course for leaders, which is based on inner work. And here's my first slide, which is that your consciousness, which is literally your soul, if you will, your non-local self, is simultaneously manifesting as your moods, emotions, environmental situations, behavior, biology, social interactions, personal relationships, perception, and even the environment and nature's forces, because nature's forces outside you and nature's forces inside you are the same. The same electrical storms that create lightning in the clouds, also the same electrical storms create thoughts in your brain. There's no difference between nature's forces outside or inside. Very totally consistent with the Eastern wisdom traditions. And with that as a basic understanding, I created this acronym, which is how do you rewire the nervous system to create literally the hardware in the brain for leadership. Learn and listen, look and listen inside. So we create something in our leaders called a soul profile. You know, Howard Gardner, who is one of the pioneers in leadership from Harvard Business School, you may be familiar with his name because he was the person who originally talked about multiple intelligence. So, you know, most people when they talk about intelligence, it's IQ. Well, we have musical intelligence, we have mathematical intelligence, we have body intelligence, we have spatial intelligence, we have creative intelligence, none of which is addressed in our educational systems whatsoever. Now, when I came here and Ming showed me around, I could see a lot of very interesting, playful creativity in this environment, whether it's the garden outside or, you know, your Google Maps or just the way things are placed here and decorated here. There's a lot of creative, playful energy here. And that is an extension of the consciousness here. You know, it's the collective creativity that is manifesting at that. So when you look inside your inner world and you ask yourself questions like, who am I? What do I want? What's my purpose? What kind of contribution do I want to make to my family, to the world, to the community? What are my unique skills and talents? How do I put them to use? What's really fun for me? What are peak experiences? What do I look for in a good friendship? What do I bring to a relationship? Who are my archetypes, my heroes, my heroines in history, in mythology, in religion? That kind of reflection starts a process in you that creates a vision automatically. And when we do it collectively, that vision can be very empowering. So based on a soul profile, then we create teams that are emotionally bonded, that limbically resonate with each other. And that limbic system resonating with limbic system. This is well-known phenomenon now, that when you look at teams that win, particularly sports teams, you know, when you see the Super Bowl or whatever, the teams are pretty close to each other as far as talent is concerned. What makes a team win is the emotional connection in the team. You know, do they have emotional intelligence? Are they free of toxic emotions like resentments, grievances? You know, as Nelson Mandela once said, holding a resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it'll kill your enemy. So how do you become emotionally free? How do you get in touch with your own feelings? How do you get in touch with the feelings of others? How do you resolve conflicts through creativity? Einstein once said, no problem can be solved at the level of consciousness at which the problem was created. You have to move to the next level of consciousness. So that brings us to expanding awareness and understanding both hierarchies of needs and hierarchies of responses. The midbrain acts just through fight-flight. The limbic brain can act through emotional dysfunction, reactivity. You know, the controlling and manipulating a situation either by being nice or being nasty or being indifferent or playing the victim. And we learn these habits very early in childhood. So when you're about 3 years of age and you're out shopping with your mother and you want a lollipop and she says, no, I'm not going to do that because you got one yesterday, what do? First thing you say is, you play nice. Mommy, I love you. I'll give you a kiss. Will you please buy me the lollipop? And if she doesn't, then the second thing, what do? You play nasty. You throw a tantrum. You lie down hoping to embarrass her. You still don't get the lollipop, then you go home and she can't find you. You're hiding in the closet and she says, aren't you going to come for lunch? And you say, leave me alone. You pout. You get stubborn, indifferent. And if that doesn't work, you finally go to your mother and you say, you play the victim. You're nice to my brothers and sisters. You're not nice to me. So by now she's fed up and she gives you the lollipop and your little brain says it works. And by the time we are 8 years of age, and this is, I'm not exaggerating, these are psychological studies, the average leader is an emotionally retarded male at the age of 8 years. Because the average leader reacts either from the midbrain or the dysfunctional limbic brain. If you can go beyond those two, you have what is called centered awareness, where you're present, where you're mindful. We have somebody here from Mindfulness Without Borders, where we're teaching, this non-profit organization is going across the world, teaching people, young children, mindfulness, to be aware of the moment, to be aware of what's happening in their body, to be aware of their breath, to be aware of their environment, but also to be aware of their inner world, their feelings, their inner images, their thoughts, their ideas, and all so easy to teach. So when you have access to this and you go beyond fight, flight, and reactive responses, you stop being controlling and manipulative through being either nice or nasty or indifferent or stubborn or playing the victim, then you have access to higher states of consciousness. Intuition, which is a form of intelligence that is contextual, relational, holistic, nurturing, doesn't have a win-lose orientation, goes beyond cause-effect because it eavesdrops on context. And when you have context, then you have creativity. True creativity can never be programmed into a computer because there's no algorithm for creativity. Okay? True creativity comes from the discontinuity. It comes from your soul. And beyond creativity is eavesdropping on the higher mind, the bigger mind that is, in a way, correlating everything in the ecosystem. We are part of an ecosystem. The world is our extended body. And so when you see the contexts, the meanings, the relationships, the archetypal themes that run the bigger context, you have creativity, higher vision, a sense of mystery, sacredness, and then, only then, you can dare to dream and take action. So we start as human beings, then you become human feelings, then human thinkings, and finally human doings. But our world is totally the opposite. Everybody is doing, doing, doing. There's very little thinking. It's mostly about me. There's hardly any feeling, and it's mostly dysfunctional, and there's no being. So wisdom traditions say the highest state of human intelligence is being. Just being. The second highest state of human intelligence is the feeling that we call love and compassion. The third highest state of human intelligence is the thinking that is creative, that can create new meanings, new contexts, new relationships, and new themes. And the least intelligent state of being is doing. But finally, when you do it on the basis of being, feeling, thinking, what in Eastern traditions we call karma yoga. The right thing at the right time, process orientation and not outcome orientation. Empowerment, leaders know how to empower themselves and empower others. And we find that people who feel empowered, they have three major characteristics. One, they have great self-esteem. They don't confuse self-image with self-esteem. Self-image is what other people think of you. Self-esteem comes from a deeper level by asking the questions that I asked earlier. Great leaders have great self-esteem. They have values, they live up to their values, and they use their strengths. Now, as part of Gallup, as a senior scientist there, we actually all know what our strengths are. So for example, if you ask me